Arsenal 2, Wolves 1. Arsenal have some shame. Wolves Football Club, well done. You've played very, very well today. It was very unfortunate that you weren't able to get away with the draw. But you know what? I'm just going to focus at my club today because I really, really need to talk about the alarming things I've seen from my team. Now, you probably are thinking to yourself, we won the game. What are you talking about? You should be happy. We got the points. We are, with the game in hand, 5 points ahead of everyone else. What's there to complain about? And let me just tell you this, right? If you were to look at the Premier League table, we are not even halfway through the season, and Wolves Football Club have 2 points. 2 points up until now in December. That means they probably drew 2 games. They haven't even won a game yet. And that means that they are most likely going to be relegated at the end of the season. Every single team that's played against Wolves, bar those 2 draws or whatever they were, has smacked Wolves, have beaten Wolves. And they have come to the Emirates Stadium against Arsenal Football Club, the leaders, and given a performance like that. Arsenal Football Club have some shame. This was a game that we needed to dominate. We needed to beat them. This should have never have ever gotten to this point. At the 90th minute, we were thinking that possibly there was a high chance that Wolves Football Club were going to get a draw against Arsenal. They were about to get their 3rd point of the season against Arsenal Football Club, a team that's meant to be going for the title. And you can say, oh yeah, these relegation teams can cause upset against big teams, blah blah, this and that. I don't care about any of that. This was a team that we should have beaten comfortably. This was a team that we should have had to rotate our entire squad, but for some odd reason, when I looked at the lineup, it was a very, very strong lineup. We had Eze, Zubamendi, Rice, Gyökeres, Saka, Martinelli, and we had a backline of Timber, Hincapié, Saliba and White, with Raya obviously being in goal. So you're probably thinking to yourself, damn, that is actually a pretty strong backline. I thought Lewis Skelly was going to start, but no, we decided to put Timber back in left back or Hincapié in left back, which I just thought to myself was a bit weird because look, Hincapié just come to the club. I know he's played left back in probably his first 10 minutes at the club, but for God's sake, if we have these injuries, just keep the players in their positions. Keep it set for a while. Just build some consistency with that. But that's no here nor there. If we were to just look at that first half, it was abysmal in my opinion. It was so lackluster. Wolves had the better clear-cut chances. We have to thank our lucky stars. Hwang wasn't fast enough to get the ball across goal and shoot it, because we could have been 1-0 down at half time. But no here nor there. Arteta probably gave them a real bollocking at halftime, because in the second half we've had way more chances, we had way more of the possession. We probably had about 70% possession or whatever it is, because I'll just be honest, right? We've had 17 shots compared to their 3. We've had way more passes, and like I said, with 70% possession, I'm sorry, my head is just, I don't know why I'm so annoyed with this game. It's because we should have never have gotten to this place in the first place. Now look, I'm very happy we got the win. I'm very happy we're 5 points on top, but there's some standards that we need to have, and we barely even rotated in my opinion. Odegaard, Trossard, Madueke were at the bench. Now don't get me wrong, all the goals that were scored today were scored by Wolves. And that for me is very damning. The fact that we needed Wolves to score 2 own goals, right, for Arsenal to win. And don't get me wrong, the first goal, corner, that was a freak. The second goal was very, very unfortunate by the player Mosquera. And it was very unfortunate to see how he was after the game, because I thought Wolves really played very well, heart out today. I mean, it's clear of the different qualities between the sides, but it was just very unfortunate. But overall, from the starting line, Eze played down the middle, which a lot of people were thinking about, because especially when Odegaard came into the team, there's a bit of debate in between whether Eze or Odegaard should be down the middle. But Eze just wasn't really able to do much today. He wasn't able to get into those pockets of space and really do much of anything really. And when Martinelli came out in the second half, he managed to dribble past the guy and finally get across goal. Then we decided to do the sub, which I thought was wrong, because when Martinelli was starting to get into his groove, we subbed him off, and it kind of had to rebuild the momentum of the game. But then we kept recycling it and kept getting crosses into the box, and Saka may have got man of the match today, right? But here's the thing, but that cross he did, very good. That assist that he did to Gabriel Jesus was also good. So on this argument, alright, sure, he should have started this game. But my debate is, and my question is, if Madueke scored those 2 goals in the Champions League, one of them being a screamer, probably one of the goals of the season, is it right to bench him the next game? You could argue maybe he should have started this game, especially since sense it was Wolves. I can argue that Saka needs minutes, he needs to build his form, hasn't been the absolute best as of late, but I am thinking to myself, would you just rather prefer the guy to play the guy that's more informed, the guy that's more ready and like playing better in my opinion? But look, Saka got man of the match, it was a good thing, and he managed to get the assist, so that was good in itself. I thought with Victor Gyökeres, again, this was another game where I'm thinking to myself, dude, if you can't score against Wolves, I don't know like what's going to happen. Now look, Gyökeres has scored this season, right? But because he's come back from his injury, he needs to get a goal. He needs to really get himself going, because we need Gyökeres still firing, especially when we have problems all over the pitch. And I think with him, he just needs to start playing a lot more games, starting more games, and getting into the groove of things. Yes, I know people like Marino and Gabriel Jesus is back, which I'm going to touch on in a minute, but overall Gyökeres needs to play more games. And Benjamin White, I don't know what's going on with him, man. The injuries that he's gotten, he's played a lot of games, especially since he come back from injury. I think he's played the last 3 or 4 games like back to back, and it's quite tough, especially for someone who's just come back from injury. And I just hope that his injury isn't long lasting, that it's not that long, because we need Benjamin White. Like we saw what he can do when he's fit and he's ready, and it's a damn shame that he had to go out injured the way that he did. And the substitutions that we did when Odegaard came on, we looked more in control. We looked like we were just recycling of like style, like whatever, of set play or like style of play, like when we were just getting the ball out wide, crossing it in. We just kept doing that over and over and over again. So there's a bit more of a consistency in the pattern of play that which we did there. And obviously Trossard coming on, we brought him on off the bench. I'm still thinking whether or not this guy's injured. It's just really weird because he's not starting, and usually you'd expect him to start, but I don't know whether he's injured or not injured, or it's playing through an injury. It's really, really weird. And obviously we bought on Marino, and the surprising thing was that when we bought on Marino, we didn't take off Gyökeres, we took off Zubimendi. And with Zubimendi, I have to say, it's not been the absolute best of games as of late from him, in my opinion. I think that with Zubimendi, he's gotten a bit tired. He's played a lot of games, and we need to start rotating him more. Like obviously with Norgard there, we're not really relying on him much, but we have to remember Marino's a midfielder as well, and Rice can play the DM position, so we need to rotate more on that side of things. And then when Gabriel Jesus came on, look, I know people may say he got the winner, and yes, he was a big contributing factor into that. However, we shouldn't have been in that position in the first place, because one thing that I like what Gyökeres does, and this is something that you can even say, I don't know, even Lacazette did in the past, right? He pressed the opposition. He made it difficult for them to pass the ball. And whenever I looked at Gabriel Jesus and going in for challenges, he seemed to back out for me. And that is something that really, really annoyed the hell out of me, especially towards the end of the game. Because here's the thing, right? We had the ball for 70% of possession throughout the entire game, and it was only until the last 5 minutes where we went towards and like, yeah, go on, then go and have a go at us. Now it was, in my opinion, a poor reading of the game. Yes, majority of the season we have let other teams get the ball and we just sat back, but this wasn't that scenario to do that. If we had the ball for 70% possession, it was important that the team that kept the ball had better control of the game. And I think especially in the end, we didn't have that control. It always felt very nervy, because even when we sat back, we weren't going for the ball, we weren't making life difficult for them, we weren't pressing them, like we were doing none of that. We just sat back, and I just didn't like that, especially when we did a substitution when Gabriel Jesus came on. I was expecting Jesus to run at them, make life difficult, but he wasn't doing that. I felt that he still is a bit afraid of his injury, or he doesn't want to aggravate certain things, which I can understand, but I don't want to see that. I want to see my player, like the strikers, at least running at them and making life difficult. And that's something, although with Gyökeres he hasn't been as prolific with getting the goals, that's something which I know that he will do. He will run at players and make life difficult, and that's why I'm really annoyed with Gabriel Jesus today, because when he did get some chances towards the end of the game, but overall I just didn't really like what I saw today. But overall, we got 3 points. It's good on that part. Wolves, very unfortunate not to get it. And Arsenal Football Club, please have some shame, man. These guys were about to draw at the Emirates Stadium. It wasn't even, we weren't in the Molineux, we weren't in that away at their ground where maybe you can make some sort of debate about it. We were 2 to 3 minutes away from a draw, of giving Wolves their 3rd point of the season. 16-7, I don't know how many games we're in right now, nearly halfway, and we were about to give them their 3rd point. A team that's pretty much factually going down, right? But yeah, that's the end of this game. Absolute headache to watch, but you know what, we got the 3 points, whatever, right? Anyhow, please like and subscribe, and hope to see you soon in the next video. Bye.